Christians, we're not going to act like there's no correlation or connection between Jesus and Dionysus, are we? We're not going to do that. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about Jesus turning water into wine, the miracle at Cana, and its connection with Dionysus. So I see a lot of videos where people say, oh my goodness, Christianity just stole paganism. Oh my goodness, Christianity stole Christmas. Christianity stole Dionysus, Mithras, Apollo. I don't look at it as stealing. I look at it as borrowing. I look at it as appropriation to create your own heroes. I look at it as syncretization. When you have people who come together who have different views, different beliefs, there is a melding, there's a syncretizing of the beliefs of those people, and beliefs morph, mythologies morph. So it's not as simple as saying, they stole that, they stole that, they stole that. It's far more nuanced than that. And we must look at the whole picture. Yes, we have to look outside of the Bible as well, at history, archaeology, and we must look beyond those who are the apologists. The apologists only want to prove the Christian story no matter what. See, that little speck of evidence over there proves Noah and the flood. We're not talking about that, because apologists will bend over backwards to show you that Dionysus and Jesus are nothing alike when they're quite similar. Now, let's go to the evidence about Cana, the miracle in Cana. It is only in the book of John. And in the book of John, which Bible scholars say was likely written in Ephesus, where Dionysus was quite prevalent, in the book of John, Jesus turns water into wine at a wedding at the behest of his mother. And when he does, the wine is superior to the wine that they had been drinking before. So here, not only do we have he turned water into wine, there is a quality essence to it too, because the wine supposedly was better than the wine that they were originally drinking. And someone even made a comment at the wedding that said, you saved the best wine for last. Whereas normally they give you the best wine, and when you're drunk, then they bring out the less superior wine. So notice what John is doing, or of course, the Apostle Paul, the Apostle John did not write the book of John. We know that. Notice what the writer is doing. The writer is wanting to make a point about Jesus, his abilities, and not only that he can turn water into wine, he can turn water into a better wine. Like, our God is better than your God, Dionysus. There, take that, pagans. This story of water being turned into wine is not in any of the other gospels. Now, the synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, synoptic. Syn means similar. Optic means viewpoint. So those three gospels see things from a similar viewpoint, a similar lens. Those first three gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they are the synoptics. And then you have John, which is just a weird something. I mean, what was he talking about? What was he doing? He was on a whole different tip, okay? So we already understand that John is on a whole different tip than Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And not to say that Matthew, Mark, and Luke agree on everything, because they don't. Yeah, they sort of view things similarly, and John is a completely different animal. So the water and the wine doesn't appear in the other ones. It only appears in John. And in the book of John, which was written most likely from Ephesus, Dionysus is everywhere. Dionysus is the big god. Of course, I believe in that locale, Artemis was the chief goddess and Dionysus was the chief god. You couldn't escape this dude. And he had been installed in that whole eastern area of the Levant. He had been installed as a chief god for centuries. Everyone would have known about the Bacchic mysteries. Everyone would have known about Dionysus and his wine antics. What are some of Dionysus' wine antics? Well, in one temple, they would put three huge vats in a temple, seal up each vat, close the doors, leave it overnight, come back the next morning. Each of the 3 vats are filled with wine. Now, that is not turning water into wine because there was nothing in the vats in the first place. So the apologetics like to say, well, that's not the same because our Savior turned water into wine. And your guy, well, he just turns nothing into wine. We get more points on it. And it doesn't quite work that way, right? It doesn't work that way. In another story, at a spring that is in a temple or near a temple of Dionysus, the spring on a certain night, January 5th to the 6th, which, by the way, January 6th is 3 Kings Day, connection to Jesus. The spring, the water in the spring turns into wine. Now, that was not Dionysus himself turning water into wine, but are we getting into technicalities here? Are we not understanding that Dionysus is the wine dude? He's the grapevine dude. Everybody talks about Dionysus, the wine, the grapes, all of that. Now, there's more. Wine in the cult of Dionysus was connected to divinity. Because when you drink the wine, wine is spirits. And they call them spirits for a reason. Okay? Because when you get them spirits in you, you start acting differently. Now, that is proven by science and proven by your last Thanksgiving dinner, probably. Oh, look at Uncle Joe. Uncle Joe, you need to slow down on the Heineken. Okay? Even though Heineken's not wine, we understand that alcohol and its influence on humanity has been termed spirits. And this is ancient. Because in the world of Dionysus, this idea that when you drink the wine, you are now one, you're coming into your divinity, and you are now in connection, you are now in communication with the divine Dionysus. The women used to go into the hills. They talk about how the wives would steal away at night and go into the mountains to commune with Dionysus, drink wine. Even though they weren't drunk, they weren't getting drunk on the wine, they would drink the wine, connect with Dionysus at night. Yay. I like that. If I was one of them wives, I probably would have been doing that too. Anyway, the whole idea that Jesus and Dionysus have nothing to do with each other is only held by people who do not know mythology or history or archaeology. Because in the world where the book of John was written, Dionysus was reigning supreme, and this had to be answered. You got the cult of Dionysus competing with the cult of, the Jesus people. John was like, how can I end this battle? How can I show them our God is best? And how can I show them that he's better than Dionysus, right? One more thing I want to add to this conversation is that Dionysus also had much to do with wine, grapevines. In addition to wine, grapevines, grapes. Why? Because it was a staple in the economy. People relied on wine. People drank wine. It was like we drink soda. Wine, and it was a staple, and it was high commerce, and everyone had it, and it was something that everyone engaged in, and they even have coinage with grape clusters on it. Like, this is something that's sustaining us. We understand all the good that comes from the grapes. And then, of course, grape seed has medicine in it. Grape skin has medicine in it. And grapes, this is the bounty of the harvest. So you see that this whole grape thing was very important. Thus, you see that Jesus and his reference to being the true vine, which only appears once again in the book of John, is answering that cult of Dionysus like, your God ain't going to be better than our God. Because guess what our God can do? So read it. Study it. And if you don't really like reading and studying all that much, put it into AI and then let the AI read it to you, because it is important that we study to show ourselves approved. Join us in the Mystery School, where we discuss all of this and we educate, arm, and tool and inspire you to do what is yours to do in this world without fear, shame, and guilt built into us from religion. I love you. Reverend Valerie Love at your service. And you can find more at ChristianWitches.com. Peace.